This entire process is about choosing your heart. Do you want the discomfort of vulnerability now, or the long, slow burn of distance later? Just a quick announcement, International Lovemaking Day, June 9th, is right around the corner. It's also our app, Intimately Us's birthday, and we're celebrating with a big challenge. So download the Intimately Us app today for free and join us in the festivities. You could win some amazing prizes for the bedroom. All right, are you the one that feels like you have the sex drive powered by a V8 engine while your spouse is running on a charming but underpowered 4-cylinder? If you're the one in your marriage always initiating, always hoping, and sometimes feeling like you're the only person in the bedroom with a pulse, well, this episode is for you. I'll share 3 concrete principles and give you ideas of what to do and consider if you're in this scenario. And by the end of the episode, you'll have a better idea of what it means in your marriage to have differences in sexual desire and what to do about it. On a serious note, differences in sexual desire is one of the most common yet painful dynamics I hear from couples. Sexual desire is complex for any individual, and it's compounded now when there's 2 different people trying to forge an intimate life together. I'm grateful for the emails, Instagram DMs that you send me, and the messages you post in our private Facebook group. It's no understatement that there can be a lot of pain in a relationship when there's differences in sexual desire, and sometimes those differences are really big. It's especially frustrating when you feel like you're doing all the right things, stepping up and doing your part the best you can, the best you know how, and you still feel gridlocked when it comes to sex. These feelings hurt. You feel confused. There's deep emotional pain, and these are all real emotions. And sometimes you might wonder if you're alone. It seems like so many other couples don't struggle with this. The reality is every normal marriage deals with sexual desire differences at one point or another. And my marriage, by the way, is no exception. I'll share one story with you if you'll be kind and not judge me. This isn't my best moment. I'm not proud of it. And I've got other stories that are far worse, and you probably don't want to hear those today. Years ago, my wife and I enjoyed a kid-free weekend getaway together. It was romantic, it was extremely connecting, and we just got to experience some firsts that weekend that just made this a really particularly sacred and memorable time for us. I was feeling really good about our relationship. So on the way home, we're in the car. I take a deep breath and I mustered the courage to ask my wife if she would be open to trying a new sexual behavior we haven't tried yet. And this is something that I was secretly interested in trying for a while. So I mustered up the courage and said, "Hey, can we try this?" Remember, we're coming off of a weekend where we felt close and, lovey-dovey. Those feelings are wonderful. You feel close and seen by each other more than ever. And I was not prepared for what happened next. My request, it was not well received. The whole mood between us shifted. You could literally feel the thick distance between us grow in an instant. My request deeply troubled her, and I freaked out. That it bothered her so much, and that it bothered me so much too. So, not knowing what to do, I reacted to this situation, the sudden growing distance between my wife and I quickly apologized for even bringing it up. I'm just trying to right the situation. And through her tears, she said she just can't do what I want, and things felt weird between us for the next few days. Can you relate to something like this in your own marriage? Research and my experience shows that, generally speaking, men in heterosexual long-term relationships are the ones that initiate sex more often. But in about 35% or so of the couples I work with, the wife has higher sexual desire. So, if you're the wife listening to this episode that has higher sexual desire in your marriage when it comes to sex, please don't feel left out in the examples I'm about to share. I see you, and I understand that you feel like you carry more of the burden for sexual connection in the marriage. The principles I'll share today apply whether it's the husband or the wife that has more desire for sexual improvement. The first principle I want to share with you is what I call the universal truth, which is this. In every marriage, at a given time, one person will have a higher desire for sex than the other. This universal truth applies to other domains of the marriage too. It can be about spending versus saving money, tidiness of the home, parenting concerns, travel or stay home, having deep conversations or avoiding them, or brownies for dessert. You name it. Differences in desire abound in any domain of the marriage. Sex is one of them. Sex is also very personal and core to who we are, hence why it seems so sensitive compared to the other domains in marriage. But I want to be clear that the higher-lower desire dynamic doesn't imply a hierarchy. Being higher desire for sex doesn't mean you're higher or better. Being lower desire for sex doesn't mean you're somehow lesser or below your spouse either. I've noticed this in our Next Level coaching program, where, if you're not familiar with that program, that's where individuals and couples get access to me, my course, and receive weekly guidance at affordable price. It's a great program. What I'm noticing in the program is we've stopped saying the terms lower desire and higher desire so people don't confuse it with one being better or worse than the other, as that line of thinking is counterproductive to building a solid, intimate marriage. It seems to go better for some when we use language such as those who tend to be more spontaneous or those who tend to be more responsive when it comes to sex. Or, we love this metaphor too. Who is the party planner and who is the invitee? And let's be honest, some of the party planners are planning bedroom parties months in advance, while the invitee is still checking their schedule from last Tuesday's event, right? Anyway, connected with the universal truth is this. The person that tends to be more responsive or be lower desire in marriage also controls the frequency and type of sex the couple has. They have the control. This principle applies to more than just sex, by the way. For example, if two people are negotiating a business transaction, the person who is less invested in that transaction controls the terms of the agreement. Now, stop and think. Is that you? Are you the one secretly holding the veto power over your intimate life? Or are you the one constantly pitching ideas that get shot down? Or say you're hosting a birthday party and you really want a friend to come, but that friend is gluten-free. So you're going to make sure there's gluten-free cake for her so that she's not excluded. Or if you have an unmotivated teenager, you know the feeling very well of what it's like to have higher desire for something, yet the lower desire person, the unmotivated teen, has more control in that relationship. So this is what it means concretely when it comes to sex. That's why if one spouse wants to do X, Y, or Z, and the other person is only willing to do Y, guess what? Y happens, not X or Z. You might ask, do the spouses that control the sex in the marriage, that lower desire spouse, do they like being in that position? That really is a great question. And remember, reality is more complicated because sexual desire is complex. Not all lower desire spouses like the fact that they're the ones in control of the sex in the marriage. In one couple I coached where the husband was the one that tended to be, doing more of the initiating, planning, and thinking about sex relative to his wife. And she's the one that had more control. She wasn't malicious about it. But the power that comes with being the lower desire spouse is real. And some lower desire spouses are reluctant to give up that power, even though they might not think about it in those terms. The lower desire spouse has some advantages. She or he gets to be the one that's pursued, which feels great. And I mean, don't we all want to feel wanted and pursued from time to time? When the dynamic is unhealthy, the lower desire spouse doesn't have to do much. They can underfunction and let the higher desire spouse do all the emotional work to make sex happen just the way the lower desire spouse likes it. They set the terms, when, how often, and what happens. That's a significant amount of relational power and leverage, and human beings generally don't surrender power easily, even when holding on to it is costing them something in a marriage, like closeness and intimacy. But here's what I think is just as true, maybe more true, is for a lot of people who are in that lower desire position. Many lower desire spouses genuinely hate being the lower desire spouse. They feel broken or pressured constantly. They feel guilty. They feel the weight of their partner's disappointment and don't know what to do about it. They're not sitting there thinking, I love being in control. They're often thinking, why can't he just be fine with what we have? Or what's wrong with me? Or why can't I want this at the same level as him? Or, I feel so much pressure every time he looks at me a certain way. That's not someone enjoying their power. That's someone suffering in a different way than the higher desire spouses. Now, it's not all bleak. You know how I told you that the lower desire spouse controls sex in the marriage? Well, that's not the complete story. The lower desire spouse controls sex in the marriage when the couple is emotionally enmeshed, which means they're emotionally reactive to each other. Now, the good news is that the higher desire spouse has more control than he or she realizes. His or her secret advantage? They control the depth of honesty and intimacy the marriage is capable of experiencing. Which brings me to my second principle. Conflicts over sex are not a sign of things gone wrong. In fact, they're an invitation for the couple to grow up. Dr. John Gottman, he's the nation's most renowned marriage researcher. He said 69%, which is a very convenient number, 69% of problems a couple faces are recurring issues and don't have a solution. But rather than trying to solve a problem without a solution, John Gottman says you should just learn how to manage them as a couple. Kind of like a person that has a weak knee learns how to deal with it. Some might consider sexual desire differences fall into that 69% category. So yes, some couples might just agree to disagree and work around their sexual differences, thinking that's the way to happiness. But I'm far more optimistic. I have witnessed couples resolve complex sexual problems. But the solution to complex problems require us to grow up. Albert Einstein is attributed to saying it this way: we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. My personal belief is that God desires us to grow and mature and learn His character and His divine attributes. Marriage, specifically sex in marriage, is an excellent and very effective refiner's fire that invites us to grow. Personal responsibility and growth is the solution to most sexual difficulties, not negotiation tactics or communication strategies you might read in a textbook. Conflict and contention are not the same thing. Conflict is inevitable in any marriage. Hey, you married someone different from you, and of course they're weird for not liking pineapple on their pizza. Contention, though, is a choice. Nothing significant in human history has ever happened without some conflict instigating it. Conflict drives us to clarify our values, push ourselves beyond our current limits, inspires us to invent new solutions, and ultimately invites us to be more loving, kind, patient, generous, understanding, firm, solid, gracious, and measured. One thing uncomfortably valuable about sexual conflict in marriage is that it exposes our weaknesses, patterns, and dynamics. And if you pay close attention, it can be a valuable teacher. Specifically, how we respond to our conflict gives us clues like stepping stones that facilitate our psychological, emotional, and spiritual development. For example, in a coaching session, when a couple explains their sexual conflicts with me, I'm really interested in what happens next in their story. This is what I mean. You know the story I told you earlier in this episode about my wife and I on our way home from a romantic getaway, and I mustered the courage to ask for something sexual to try, and how she responded defensively. Did you notice what I did next in that story? I rushed in to apologize. Kind of like when you squeeze too much toothpaste out of the container and you're trying to put it back in, but it doesn't work very well. I rushed to apologize to try to fix the problem between us. I didn't like the yucky feeling of conflict between us. So by reflex, I reacted to that unpleasant emotion by quickly trying to collapse the growing distance between us. My tendency in conflicts like that is to be the nice guy, to accommodate others, to apologize, to sacrifice what I want, while kind of being a martyr in the process. In your sexual conflicts, what do you do next? What is your instinct, reflex, or pattern? Sometimes the way we handle sexual conflict in the moment actually perpetuates the conflict, almost guaranteeing that it never gets fully resolved. Here's what I mean. You've probably heard the trope about the guy who's stressed about his finances. Money is tight, things feel out of control, and that feeling of scarcity is genuinely uncomfortable. So what does he do to deal with it? You guessed it. He goes shopping. Not because he needs anything, but because buying something gives him a little hit of control and pleasure. He feels better for about 45 minutes. Then the credit card bills arrive. The financial stress gets worse, and now he needs to, you guessed it, go shopping again to feel better about the shopping he did. The solution to the stress of debt is the very thing creating more debt. The hit of control and pleasure in spending solves the momentary emotional pain, but this quote-unquote solution guarantees the problem stays around. He's not solving the root of the problem. He's actually funding it. In my story, my way of apologizing as a reflex, as a way of dealing with my low tolerance for conflict about sexual differences in my marriage, almost guarantees we'll continue to have sexual conflict because, frankly, it's not an honest approach towards dealing with our differences. So what do you do instead? I'm not saying you be a bully or be callous either, or pretend to be indifferent and like it's not an issue as a way to keep the conflict at bay. It's looking at what happens next in your patterns when it comes to sexual conflict. From my experience and from my study, people do what I call one of these 3 A's. It's act out, accommodate, and avoid. Act out means you be the aggressor or the bully. People who are good at acting out know that if they're aggressive or angry enough, others will finally give in. You might get compliance in the short term, but not loyalty in the long term. Acting out might let you win a battle at the cost of intimacy. The second A, accommodators, fold into the other person's reality, often to keep them happy with you. Some people call this fawning or being the nice guy, but it breeds resentment, and you feel like you betray yourself in the process. And its casualty? Intimacy in the marriage. The third A is avoidance. This is when you create distance or put up walls to deal with your differences. You can't deal with the fact that you have differences, so you distance yourself. You cut each other off as a way of dealing with differences. You assert your autonomy at the expense of closeness and intimacy. So there you have it. Those are the 3 A's. But there is a 4th A. It's another way to deal with conflict. It's called being an adult. This means dropping the victim act and picking up your dignity and self-respect. This means being okay that honest differences are a reality in any healthy relationship. It's also acknowledging that these differences are often uncomfortable and even painful, but you can be an adult about it. You can take a principled approach towards solving differences. This means using conflict to help you take personal responsibility and grow and choose the higher road in your relationship. I worked with a couple where the wife was the one with the higher desire for sex. Her husband coached high school tennis. He loved his tennis team, and she dreaded every spring when tennis season would start, when she would feel like a widow and sometimes feel second place or even last place. Her husband would give generously to his tennis players, fulfill his church responsibilities, his work, and even his children, and she felt like he had nothing left in the tank for her at the end of the day. He told her he felt controlled by her, and he felt like her desire for sex had a needy energy to it, like as if she looked to him and sex for reassurance that she was sexy and beautiful and desired by him. He assured her that he did find her sexy, attractive, and beautiful, but the neediness was a turnoff. She hated hearing this because she didn't see it that way. She would say it wasn't about the neediness, but about wanting to be wanted and chosen, and felt last on his list of priorities, especially during tennis season. She tried all of the 3 A's I mentioned. She would get angry, but that would just drive him further away. Then she would try to pretend that it wasn't an issue and accommodate him, but she felt even more transparent and walked on like a doormat. Then she tried avoiding him as a way of punishing him, giving him a taste of his own medicine, so to speak, so that he would feel what it felt like to be last place too, in the hopes that he'd learn the lesson and change. But this sort of race to the bottom mentality backfired in very unhealthy ways in their relationship. Things started to shift in a positive direction one night. She lay wide awake, next to her sleeping husband, feeling really sorry for herself. She realized she was turning into her mom. Her mom would do all of these kinds of things to try to get her dad to listen to her. She resented the way her mom treated her dad. Shifting her weight, she propped herself up on one elbow and looked at her sleeping husband. She wondered, what is it like from his perspective to be married to me? And why does sex matter so much to me and doesn't seem like it matters so much to him? The more she pondered that night, she began to realize that their conflict over sex was more to do with a fight for his loyalty. She wanted him to prove over and over again that she mattered most in his life. Then she would wonder, what was wrong with that? Doesn't every wife want to know that she's number one in her husband's eyes? Perhaps there's nothing wrong with wanting her to matter to her husband, but the trap was in wanting him to prove it to her on her terms. She then realized that she did really want him to want her, but more than that, she wanted him to want her. That's a little confusing. She wanted him to want her on his own volition, out of his own choice, out of his own agency, not because she told him to. She saw how her behavior, how she treated him, got in the way of him wanting to want her. She also realized how much her sense of herself was wrapped up in whether or not her husband chose her and pursued her. Because she needed his affection so badly, she would do things to try to manipulate and control him to get the reassurance that she was fine, just like how her mom did it. She realized she had choices. She wasn't going to be a victim to her husband's seasonal affection. She was no longer going to measure her value on something outside of her that she didn't have control over, her husband's behavior and choices. The next time she felt lonely or neglected after her husband came home late from a weekend away coaching his team at a tournament, instead of her usual punishing behaviors, she just got honest and revealed how she felt to her husband without asking for his pity. She said something like this: I feel lonely in this marriage, especially during tennis season. I value our intimate relationship so much, and I wish things were different. I wish I didn't worry so much whether you think of me as much as I think of you while you're gone. It feels great to be sexually pursued by you, and I wish you pursued me more often. I also know I haven't made it easy for you to do that. I'm sorry for the way I punish you. That's not the kind of person I want to be anymore. I'm turning into my own mom. I want intimacy and sex to be easier for the two of us. It would be wonderful if you'd leave me a dirty little note for me to find, or if you'd just sext me while you're away at your tennis tournaments. I would really like that, but I'm not going to demand it. I'm really completely, fully committed to being my best in this marriage, and I haven't treated you very well. It hurts, by the way. It hurts a lot, sometimes being the one with more sexual desire, especially as the woman, as the wife. I feel so alone. But I don't think I should punish you for it. I do want you to realize how much it means to me and that it has a cost in our relationship for the way we deal with our sexual desire differences. And I'm no longer going to do what my mom did to my dad to you. I want to choose a better way. And just ask for your patience with me as I learn how to deal with our differences a little bit better. Wow. Talk about taking a risk, being vulnerable and honest, right? What a great thing a wife said. So after she told her husband these things honestly, it felt different between them. He could feel her honesty and he could feel her raw hurt without her throwing a pity party. He could just sense that she wasn't trying to change his mind either. She was just revealing her mind. And he could also feel her genuine resolve. This wasn't a show. And it kind of scared him, actually. It woke him up. Now that the truth is in the light, he could no longer pretend his actions didn't affect her, or that it was her fault for why he didn't pursue her. It caused him to think about his own way of dealing with their sexual desire differences, in his own less than honest method, too. The following weekend, her husband left again for another tennis tournament. After a long day, feeling lonely, she opened the bathroom cupboard to get her toothbrush. Surprise! There was a note tied to her toothbrush. A dirty note. How dare he? That made her beam inside. Then when she finally laid her tired head on her pillow to go to bed, she felt something below her pillowcase. A paper? She pulled it out. She blushed. Another dirty note on a sticky note from her husband. She lubricated right on the spot. He remembered her. He did this all on his own. Now, this story has a happy ending, and most of the time, things work out like this. I remember a phone call I had with a man that wanted to join our next level coaching program, designed for couples. He said he would sign up in a heartbeat, but his wife isn't on board with the idea, and he figures, what's the point of joining a program to help couples improve their sex life if the spouse is unwilling? He has a fair point. But the reality is we wait too long to see if the other will go first. Going first feels risky. There's no guarantee that the other person will follow. Going first is very vulnerable. But you need to choose your hard. Do you want the hard of being vulnerable now with a chance for a better, happier, more intimate marriage later? Or do you want the hard of remaining in the status quo where you're comfortable now while suffering the long burn of a diminishing intimacy over time? Of the two, I would prefer the first. I'd rather have the hard now so I could have a better tomorrow. This leads me to my third principle. The third principle is sometimes the sex we're offering isn't great sex, and it's actually good judgment on the part of the other spouse to not engage in it. In other words, sometimes low sexual desire is a good thing and an appropriate response to what's going on in the relationship. We often assume that higher desire for sex is good and lower desire for sex is somehow bad or lesser. But I'm going to completely flip that upside down in this principle. I've shared on my podcast how there was a season in our marriage where I really wanted my wife to have orgasms more regularly, as it was infrequent at the time. I got my hands on as much material and read whatever I could to learn techniques to improve my prowess in bringing pleasure to my wife. And I strongly encouraged my wife to do the same. The thing is, the harder I'd tried to make things pleasurable for her, the worse sex became for both of us. No one likes feeling like a project. Her desire for sex became less and less. And my desire for her to have more sexual pleasure may have looked caring and selfless on the surface, right? Like, doesn't any good husband want his wife to have such great, deep, amazing sexual pleasure in bed? But that's just the surface. If you actually look below the surface, if you're really honest, it was actually very selfish of me. Because if I got really honest, I needed her to orgasm as proof that I was a good enough lover. She could sense that sex was really about me feeling like a competent lover and not about her enjoying herself. But remember, I married a good woman, and because she cared about me, she'd try. And sometimes to be extra nice, she'd sometimes fake it to make me feel better about myself. But I knew she was faking it, and then I felt worse. So you might wonder, is it good judgment on my wife's part to have lower sexual desire if the meaning of sex makes us both feel worse off? I'd say yes. So when I say the sex you're offering isn't great sex, I'm talking far more than whether or not you're having orgasms reliably. Frequency of orgasm is not the primary measure of good sex. Even rape victims can orgasm while being raped, and that is very bad sex. A better measure of good sex is the meanings and strings attached to what your sexual encounters are about. Do you ever get honest enough to ask yourself, do I need this orgasm or this frequency or this new sexual act as proof that I'm a good enough lover or relationship is growing or I'm desirable or I'm loved? If the answer is yes, you're not inviting intimacy, you're demanding validation and you're trying to extract it through sex. Is your bed the proving ground or a contest to see who's going to prevail? Or is it a place to relax? A place to play, to feel close to each other, a place to express your sexual self creatively, to be completely free and unashamed, and thoroughly enjoy ravishing and being ravished by each other? Is it a place to have fun? The better approach is to consider what appealing, welcoming, and inviting meanings can come from sex. In other words, what good fruits can good sex yield in your marriage? Is it closeness? Is it feeling completely lost in each other's arms? Is it feeling heard, seen, and known? Is it having fun and laughing? Now, if you begin with the end in mind and how you both want to feel after sex, let that feeling dictate how you plan, offer, share, and enjoy your intimate encounters. This is the heart of what we're teaching on our intimacy cruise this fall. If you're interested, we have a few spots left. It's a week-long cruise, October 4 through 10, sailing from Galveston, Texas. We do a deep dive on sexual intimacy during the times we meet while at sea. You'll find all the details on our website by going to getyourmarriageon.com and click events. A few years ago, a couple attending one of our in-person marriage retreats said he was a trisexual, which means he's the kind of guy that wants to try it all. If sex was an adult playground, he metaphorically built a massive theme park with every conceivable roller coaster and ride. His wife? Not really into roller coasters. His endless creativity and appetite for sexual novelty felt really threatening to her. She felt dragged around the massive playground when all she really wanted was just to enjoy the teacups again and again. This is where the couple was gridlocked. Sex wasn't fun for either of them because of the meanings present. When they would have sex, the elephant in the room or the dominant question was, who of the two of them was going to be most disappointed that night? Was it him or was it going to be her this time? Was it his turn to be disappointed by her not willing to try something new, yet something uncomfortable that he's been begging her to do? Or was it her turn to feel disappointed in that he couldn't just be happy with the sex they had? They both felt controlled and pressured by each other. At our retreats, we work one-on-one with couples the best we can. We try to help couples grow through their gridlock. The first step to grow is to see your dynamic in an honest way. Once the couple could see themselves more clearly in their marriage as to what was going on in the bedroom, they focused instead on how they both wanted to feel. At the root of it for him, sexual adventure represented they were growing as a couple. For her, feeling seen, heard, chosen, and cherished, and even ravished by him represented they were growing closer as a couple too. Over time, I saw this couple demolish this massive theme park and started building a new, sexy playground built on shared meaning they were both excited and enthusiastic about. It both required a lot of growth on both of their parts. Now, the sex being offered in their marriage is good sex. So, my friends, there you have it. 3 principles to help you navigate the often painful but totally normal differences in sexual desire. First, remember the universal truth. Sexual differences in marriage are guaranteed. While the responsive spouse holds the power on terms, the initiating spouse controls the depth of intimacy. That's your leverage, so use it well. Second, I want you to see conflict not as a mistake or something gone wrong, but it's an invitation for growth. Stop defaulting to act out, accommodate, or avoid, and instead choose the 4th A, be the adult in the room. Use the tension that sexual desire differences create to clarify what truly matters to both of you. And third, take a hard, honest look at the meaning you're bringing into the bedroom. If the sex you're offering is a proving ground or a transactional way to get what you want, it's not great sex, and it's actually quite selfish. And it might be actually good judgment on the part of the lower desire spouse to have low desire for sex, because frankly, the sex being offered isn't good sex. It's actually good judgment on his or her part to not be enthusiastic about that. So, as an intimate team, focus instead on creating shared meanings and desired feelings that you want to have as a result of your sexual encounters. This entire process is about choosing your heart. Do you want the discomfort of vulnerability now or the long, slow burn of distance later? I want you to choose intimacy, which means vulnerability and honesty. So here's your challenge for the week. Don't sit there waiting for your spouse to change. Pick one of these 3 principles, just one, and commit to going first to implement it in your intimate life today. Go be vulnerable. Go choose growth. Go set a new shared meaning for your sex life, and go get your marriage on.